For the preliminary task, we had to produce 2 pages for a magazine using Photoshop and Quark Express. This magazine had to be based around our college. We did this task when we had little knowledge of the magazine industry and did not know how we could make a magazine that was professionally made. These are the 2 pages for my prelim task, the front cover and the contents page. We still used the codes and conventions such as a masthead, main cover image with direct gaze, cover lines, pull quotes and so on. However, I put this front cover next to my music magazine front cover, and then put the contents page for my prelim task next to my music magazine contents page. You can tell the difference after learning more about the industry and magazine products that with more knowledge on how to produce professional looking music magazine pages, you can create a better looking product. The contents page for my prelim task looks very cheap and doesn't look in any way exciting. We did not pastiche from any other products for this task, so we had no idea what the final product should look like. To learn about the codes and conventions in the prelim task, I had a new Musical Express magazine, where I produced a video using Windows Movie Maker to describe and explain the generic conventions of this music magazine, using Adobe Photoshop to crop around the images. This helped me to understand what the codes and conventions were used for. However, I should have gone into more detail explaining why they were used as a feature on this particular magazine. When we did the prelim task, I was still quite handy with using Adobe Photoshop, so this helped me to make my front cover look relatively decent. After researching codes and conventions of music magazines early on, I found out what stuff would look like in a music magazine and where things should be placed. For example, I knew that a masthead would have to be right at the top of the page and big enough for the audience members to see. I knew that the main cover line would have to be relatively dead in the middle of the page and not across the model's face. I knew that the main cover image had to be a medium close-up shot of a model looking directly at the camera with a direct gaze. In the prelim task, to take the photos, we simply used a normal digital camera, as we had not learnt much about these technologies yet. Here are some of the photos I took for the prelim task. If you compare these to some of the photos used from the music magazine task, you can tell the differences, such as the quality of the photo seen as we used an SLR camera rather than a digital camera, and you can see how all the photos are medium close-up images with a direct gaze. The direct gaze makes the image look more personal and helps back up the mode of address and anchorage with the text on the page. I feel that I have become more confident and skilled at using Adobe InDesign over the time of this course. When we first started to use the program, I did not have a clue what I was doing and found the program really confusing and thought it seemed pointless when I could have produced the page on Photoshop. However, when I recently created my product, I realised that I couldn't have made my contents page and double page spread look this good if I created them on Photoshop, and learned that InDesign was actually good for designing the layout of the music magazine properly, as you can set up the page dimensions and use columns to order text. I also feel that I have learned new skills for Photoshop. Before this course I knew how to cut round pictures, but I used my own method using the Magic Wand tool and the Eraser tool. I had no knowledge of the Magnetic Lasso tool. This helped me to speed things up in the image of creating context. Overall, I feel I have improved a lot from when I started the preliminary task, and I have a very good understanding of the music magazine industry, and a good understanding of the codes and conventions of a music magazine and what they should look like in order to seem genuine and realistic. Along the way I have learnt new skills to take away with me, and have learnt about how to use the different programs that could come in handy later on.